Hey there everyone, we are going to walk through the home roasting process together today, and we are going to be looking at a coffee from the Sidamo region of Ethiopia. The Sidamo region of Ethiopia is the second in production in Africa and the seventh in production in the world, so the coffee begins to speak a little bit for itself. Typically, coffees from Ethiopia have characteristics such as, in taste, such as honey-like, chocolatey, they're full-bodied, and even sometimes a little bit nutty. But by contrast, they also tend to be very fruity, raspberry-like, very floral and citrusy coffees. But even sometimes they have characteristics of kind of a raspberry dark chocolate taste, which can be very fun to taste out, or to test out. But not to get too far ahead, first we're going to walk through all of the equipment that you will need. I've got here just your basic stovetop coffee roaster, which is a popcorn roaster, Roly Pop. I got it a few years ago from Sweet Maria's with a sample pack of coffee, and I now have two of them, one here for my kitchen in Florida and another one for my mom's kitchen back home in South Carolina when I want to have access to fresh roasted coffee anytime. So you definitely need that, and you will definitely need some green beans. As you can see, the beans from Ethiopia, and sometimes in Africa, or a lot of times in Africa, the beans tend to be a little bit smaller. So there you need about 8 ounces for your first roast that will do well in the stove top. The second thing you will need, or the third thing you will need, is a timer. And what I look for when I'm timing my coffee roasting is the first crack, which you can hear loud and audibly. It actually sounds like little, remember those little white firecrackers that you used to throw on the ground when you were kids? It kind of sounds just like that. First crack is where some characteristics of the coffee begin to emerge, and right about that time, or maybe a little bit before that, the coffee becomes drinkable. Second time I look for is the second crack, if I'm going to take it that far into the process, where either some characteristics of the first crack begin to change, and actually the darker you get, the less caffeine it has. So if I tend to take it a little bit more than the first crack, then that's the second time I'll be looking for. And lastly, the third time that I am looking for is the length of time it takes for me to complete the roasting process from start to finish. So that's once I turn this roaster on and begin to roast the beans, actually, to the time I dump them out in my colander. Okay? So over here I have two different types of colanders. Usually I will take the smaller colander with a spatula if I have smaller roasts like this one. It's 8 ounces. And this is the bigger one so that I can put a little bit larger, more quantities in there, and it kind of evens out the chaff. It gets more chaff out if it's a dry roasted coffee, or a dry processed coffee. And the last thing you will need is a thermometer, so you can properly gauge the temperature, make sure everything is going well and as planned, hopefully as planned. And I just go ahead and stick that back in here. Once you start, if you're using the stove top, you want to go ahead and turn your oven on, or excuse me, turn your stove on right about medium heat, maybe a little bit before medium heat, so that you don't kind of send this into a straight full-on roast, but you also can kind of monitor the temperature as it goes up, and you don't want to burn your beans as soon as you put it in there, and then it kind of just destroys the whole roast itself. So we're going to watch this temperature on the thermometer go up to about 400 degrees, and once it reaches 400 degrees, we are ready to go ahead and pour our beans in, our green beans in. So we poured our green beans in, and when you pour them in, you want to just go ahead and pour them in this part of the lid, and close the lid quickly, and go ahead and begin your rotations, not too fast, not too slow, because you don't want to, if you do it too quickly, you will speed up the roast, and it doesn't get all of its full characteristics or quality then. And if you do it too slow, you might run the risk of allowing your beans to burn. So still paying a lot of attention to the temperature You don't want it to get below about 250, 260 in the first few minutes, just so that you're watching to make sure the temperature stays hot enough for the beans to continue to begin roasting. And right then, at 6 minutes flat, we heard the first crack. What we're going to do is we're going to take this coffee to a few seconds before the second crack, which will bring out some of the taste qualities, which will bring out the aroma of kind of honey, plum-like aroma, and the taste qualities you get to experience combined with that aroma are sweet berries, intensely fruited coffee, and even some masked dark chocolate in this one. And I don't know if you can hear, you can see kind of the smoke arising from the roaster. If you listen closely, you can hear the cracks of the coffee. And what happens during the first crack is the structure of it, the cellular structure of it is beginning to break down, and we're entering a new phase of what we call the coffee bean. We've got a good rotation going. We're about 7 minutes and 25 seconds in. If you hear the pops, they're getting a lot more closely together. I don't know if you've noticed I've got a kind of a dishcloth on my arm just to prevent my arm from burning from the heat, because it's almost 400 degrees right here. A lot of times we can find that 400 degrees to our stove and not to our stove top. Let's see if we can get you closer. Now if you hear the pops are beginning to get about a few seconds slower between each other. We're 8:30 into it. Okay, and they're slowing now, so I'm going to begin to prepare to take this out. We're almost at full city, which is the second crack. We're going to go ahead and release this at 9 minutes and 3 seconds in. You see all that smoke there, and it's still going, so